In 1970, you could buy an American muscle car with a 7-liter V8 engine that produced more than 400 horsepower. It cost less than a year's average salary and could be repaired at any local garage with basic tools. Meanwhile, engineers in Germany spent months arguing about the best tolerance for a single engine bearing. They disliked arguing and believed that variance was the enemy of reliability. Both nations were making cars. Both worked. They both set the standard for cars in their respective markets. However, if you look at quality rankings, global market share, and brand perception 50 years later, the results are very different. This isn't a story about one country being smarter than another. It's a story about what happens when two industries try to succeed by very different standards. These choices accumulate over decades, becoming apparent only when it's too late to easily change course. The simple yet powerful idea behind American car dominance after World War II was to produce cars quickly and inexpensively. Detroit was the best at mass production, and no other area could compete. The scale was astonishing. Factories hired tens of thousands of people. Supply chains stretched from one state to another. There were dealer networks in every small town. The cars themselves focused on features that American buyers wanted, such as horsepower, size, comfort, and style. A Ford or Chevrolet wasn't built to last forever. They were designed to provide emotional satisfaction when purchased and good performance for a reasonable amount of time. After that, they would be replaced by newer models. Planned obsolescence wasn't a secret plan. It was simply how people acted in a market where financing made acquiring new items easy. This strategy was effective in the situation in which it was used. Gas was cheap, the roads were expanding, the suburbs were expanding. The American market was large enough to support entire companies without them needing to export much. Most of the competition was in the same country, so everyone had similar ideas about how to do things. If all manufacturers cared more about horsepower than fuel efficiency, and all consumers wanted horsepower, then fuel efficiency wouldn't matter, until something changed. The organizational culture that developed around this strategy valued being bold, getting to market quickly, and doing business on a large scale. Engineers were praised for increasing engine power, not for streamlining manufacturing processes. Marketing teams were more interested in feelings and goals than accuracy and longevity. Although quality control was in place, it mostly focused on finding problems before shipping, rather than preventing them through process design. German automotive development emerged from diverse constraints and varying values. After the war, Germany lacked natural resources and had expensive labor, so the country needed to export to survive. American mass production made it difficult for German companies to compete on price. They also couldn't compete in terms of size. However, they could compete based on the accuracy, reliability, and engineering quality of their products. This prompted a significant shift in approach, producing fewer cars but ensuring they met the highest standards. They charged more but made sure the quality was clearly better. Focus on how well they work over time, not how they look at first. The main idea behind the German philosophy was that you don't really control something if you can't reproduce it. This meant paying close attention to the process. Before a part went into production, its manufacturing process was documented in great detail. Tolerances were not set as ranges that needed to be met occasionally, but as standards that needed to be met consistently. Even if the part still worked, any variance was seen as a failure. The goal wasn't just to make one good car. It was to produce thousands of the same good car with as little change as possible. This required the organization to change its priorities. Engineers spent more time testing and validating. Manufacturing teams worked to prevent problems instead of fixing them. Quality was defined by the process capability, not the results of the final inspection. This method gives you benefits that you can't see at first, but they grow a lot over time. When you lower the variance in one part, you lower the chance that variance in other parts will cause system-level failures. You can better analyze failures and make corrections that stop them from happening again if you write down your processes in detail. You make your organization stronger by teaching employees not only what to do, but also why it needs to be done a certain way. This gets better with time. A manufacturer that systematically gets rid of defects year after year eventually reaches quality levels that competitors can't match unless they completely change the way they make things. American companies saw that German products were high quality, but they often didn't know why. People thought that German cars were made with better materials or by more skilled workers. That was true sometimes, but it wasn't the main difference. Process discipline was the main difference. Even with average workers and mid-grade materials, a well-designed process with strict controls can still make things of consistent quality. Even with high-quality materials and skilled workers, a loose process can lead to inconsistent quality. German companies put money into the infrastructure that made consistency possible, like training programs, measurement systems, methods for continuous improvement, and organizational cultures that valued preventing problems over heroic firefighting. As cars got more complicated, this became very important. Cars were pretty simple in the 1960s and 1970s. Mechanical systems were in charge. There weren't many electronics. Most of the time, when something broke, it broke on its own. The engine kept running even though the alternator was broken. A worn suspension part didn't set off warning lights. Even with loose processes, things were still manageable. But by the 1990s and 2000s, cars were very well-connected systems. Everything was handled by electronic control units. Sensors were always talking to each other. A failure in one area could lead to problems in other areas. This change hurt manufacturers who didn't have good process control. If your manufacturing variance is high and your systems are tightly linked, even small changes can cause big problems. Because German manufacturers' processes were already set up to reduce variation, they were better able to handle this complexity. They didn't need to change their basic approach, they just added new areas of discipline to what they were already doing. It was harder for American manufacturers to make the switch. The organizational cultures that had been effective for decades suddenly didn't match what the products needed. Changing culture is much harder than changing parts. It means changing incentives, getting new leaders, retraining workers, and being willing to pay short-term costs for long-term skill building. Most businesses don't want to make these changes until they have to because of a crisis. It's easy to forget that this is about people. A young engineer in a German engineering office sees that a certain assembly sequence sometimes gives results that aren't in line with the specifications, but only when the temperature is right. The parts still meet all of the requirements. Most businesses would not pay attention to this, but he writes it down, does more tests, finds the root cause, and suggests a change to the process that gets rid of the difference. His boss doesn't wonder if this is worth the effort. Process improvement is expected, not unusual. The change is put into effect. The difference goes away. No customer ever knows that this problem was avoided, which is the whole point. In process cultures, hidden successes are rewarded. In the same time period, a different dynamic often ruled in American engineering. An engineer spots a possible problem. He needs to explain why he should spend time on root cause analysis first. Is this a problem with the warranty? Is it hurting sales? If not, the best thing to do is to move on to problems that are easier to see. The organization gives rewards for putting out fires and making things happen, not for stopping them. This difference gets bigger over the course of 20 years. The German company teaches people how to stop problems from happening. The American company teaches people how to fix them. Both are useful skills, but one makes systems that get better over time, and the other makes systems that need constant help. The effects became clear in the quality rankings that came out in the 1980s and 1990s. When independent groups started regularly measuring long-term reliability, German brands always did better than American ones. This wasn't about how smart each person was. It was about how well the system worked. For decades, German companies worked on ways to stop defects from happening. For decades, American manufacturers had been working on making more power and volume. The advantage changed when the market began to place a higher value on dependability. American companies tried to do something about it. They looked at how the Japanese and Germans did things. They brought in experts, they put in place programs to improve quality. Changing the culture of an organization is like turning a big ship. It takes a lot of work, and the results take a long time to show up. In the meantime, German manufacturers kept getting better on top of what was already a strong base. It took a long time to close the gap because doing so required not only new programs, but also completely new ways of thinking about engineering and manufacturing.
This pattern goes beyond cars. Companies that put process discipline and testing infrastructure ahead of speed and features send out more reliable software than those that put speed and features first. In the pharmaceutical industry, companies that focus on quality control and process control have fewer contamination problems than those that only care about how much they make. Companies in the aerospace industry that have systematic ways of making sure quality is good have fewer catastrophic failures. The principle is true for everyone. When you build complicated systems, the process always wins. Not because process is fun, but because complexity makes changes worse by a lot. This is especially hard because customers can't see the benefits of the process right away. When a buyer looks at cars in a showroom, they can see the design, features, and price. They can't see the data on how much the manufacturing process changes or the process documentation. They don't know which company has better systems for finding the root cause of problems or better controls over suppliers. These things only become clear after years of owning a car, when one needs constant repairs and the other runs well. But by that time, the choices about what to buy have already been made. The market rewards short-term visible traits and long-term invisible traits, which gives manufacturers the wrong incentives. German manufacturers did well in a market where people valued long-term ownership. Fuel costs in Europe were higher, so it was important to be efficient. Durability was important because replacement cycles were longer. People were more loyal to brands, so reputation was more important than first impressions. These conditions were a good fit for process-driven manufacturing. American manufacturers worked in an environment where it was common to replace things often, fuel was cheap, and marketing could make up for quality problems. The strategies that each industry came up with made sense for their own situations. But when things changed, like when gas prices went up, when competition around the world got tougher, and when customers started to care more about reliability, the process-focused industry was better prepared. The change did not happen overnight. American car makers still build millions of vehicles and have improved quality significantly since the 1980s. They remain strong in trucks and large SUVs where their traditional strengths still matter. But German manufacturers hold advantages in sedans, global markets, perceived quality, and premium segments. These advantages come from decades of process discipline. They cannot be copied through marketing or quick product fixes. They require long-term investment in systems and infrastructure. This difference was never about intelligence or effort. Both sides had skilled, hardworking people. The real difference was what they optimized for. American manufacturers focused on what buyers could see and measure at purchase: power, size, features, and price. German manufacturers focused on qualities that emerged over time: consistency, durability, refinement, and process capability. As products grew more complex and markets more global, the second approach scaled better. Power is visible and easy to value. Process is invisible until something fails. By the time markets recognize its importance, the advantage already belongs to those who invested decades earlier.